this book gave me very much Heathers. Think Fast and Furious with ghouls, but make it gay. This place is f***ing haunted. Let's go. Yeah, the show. It sucks. Don't watch it. Hello friends. Hi, how are you? Good morning. My name is Erin and welcome to my channel. I've been meaning to sit down and film this video for a while, a long time, but I've had issues with like my storage and just haven't been able to do it. But I'm here to film this video once and for all because I have so many books I want to talk about, and some are good, some are bad, some are fantastic, genius.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same.
So without further ado, let's discuss the books I've read so far. And the first book I read in January was The Library of Fates. And it is your typical hero's journey. We have a princess who is betrothed to a bad guy, and she does not want to marry said bad guy, so she makes a run for it after the bad guy, the villain in the story, goes on a bit of a murder spree and kills everyone at the palace, including her dad, the king. She's never been outside of the palace, so she doesn't know really anything about her people. So she goes to a temple and she comes across this, I think it was a statue of a goddess. The goddess's name is Maya, and she, the princess, realizes that she is the spitting image of the goddess, and she's like, what? But along the way, she meets a mysterious, handsome boy. He's very dark and mysterious and funny and handsome, and just, you know, there's this magnetism and this natural chemistry between them.
Did that sound familiar to you? Because that sounds really familiar to me.
And lo and behold, he is our love interest.
No shit, Sherlock.
This book has a lot of like Hindu mythology, which I really loved, and it has a little bit of a time traveler subplot. I don't know, it's really confusing and not that great. The book overall, it's not great. It had a lot of potential, but it just didn't deliver. It was not it. The writing was not it, the characters were not it, the story overall was not good. If you are interested in a YA Hindu mythology inspired adventure book,
Nice recovery.
then this is probably it for you. It wasn't for me. It's not bad though, I'm not saying it's bad. It just wasn't great. I was hoping a lot from it, and I didn't. It didn't give what needed to be gave, you know? Yeah, anyway. Now the next book I read is Pawn's Gambit. It is a fantasy novel infused with Asian mythology. It is action-packed, it's political intrigue, it has a little teeny tiny hint of romance, it has gods, and it has a morally gray main character, which I loved. So our main character is an anti-hero of sorts. She's not the villain, but she's not the hero either. She just wants to be, first of all, she wants redemption, but she mostly wants to be left alone and drink her days away and be at peace and not be bothered and just be by herself, free. The gods have another plan, because you see, the gods hold this contest every 100 years to change their kind of like their Zeus. They choose humans to be the competitors, to go through different tasks to collect items from each one of the gods that participates to be the new Zeus. One god chooses our main girl to be her champion. Yeah. And so through this journey, we get to know her, we get to know the goddess as well, we get to know a bit more about the mythology, and we get to see her struggle with her morals and her values and what she's known all her life, which is to be a fighter and to be a strategist. She used to be the war strategist for this prince who died in war.
Oh, she passed away? Oh. All right.
And everyone is blaming her, and in the process she comes across the goddess and she involves her in the contest and whatnot. We see all her complexities and all her anxiousness and her fears and her anger, which she has a lot of. Also, hi, I'm editing, but I forgot to mention that you, our main character, we get to know not only the basics of her life and her personality, but also the complexities of her existence, and there are many, and the same goes for pretty much every single character, even the side characters. Everyone is so fleshed out, everyone is so well established. We get to know their their flaws, their wants and needs, their desires, how their minds work, just how far they're willing to go in order to get to their goal, because that's how much they believe in something, if they even believe in something. I also love that the war itself was sort of a character, like almost like an antagonist. It felt tangible and alive and almost like he was out to get us.
You in danger, girl.
This book has a great plot, amazing characters, beautiful, flowing prose. The stakes feel really high and very real, and you, as you go along with the characters, you just want to know what happens. You want to see how things turn out, and you feel exactly what they feel. You feel their anxieties, you feel their fears, you want to get to the end goal, to see what happens, to see what all of this amounts to, if it was worth it. It's a quest story inside a war story, inside a fantasy story, inside a mythology story. It's so complex and so beautiful. I absolutely loved it. This is part of a series, I believe. This is the second book, and as far as I understood, you don't have to read the books in order. I certainly didn't, to understand it. I think each book has its own story and its own set of characters, and it's just so good. The world is so well built and developed and explained. The mythology as well. The gods are it was fantastic, and I highly recommend it. The next book I read was In the Dream House. This book, it tugs at your heartstrings. It is a memoir about domestic abuse in a relationship, and it is so enraging and heartbreaking and sad, but also it's also funny. The whole book is a metaphor, and it is brilliant. The main characters are so complex and so human. I love stories like that. I love human stories. I love learning about people's lives and mistakes and the things they do and what they went through, and their pain and their suffering and their happiness and their anger and their sadness.
Girl, bitch! No, you're not gonna call me no bitch, 'cause I'm not no.
This book really gave me a lot to think about. It definitely hurt. It definitely has a lot of trigger warnings. So if you want to check them out before you read the book, I would highly suggest doing it. And it was also a very short, quick read. 265 pages, I think. It's eerie, it's atmospheric. It actually makes you fear for your life at some point. It makes you feel queasy, it makes you feel uneasy, and it's just brilliant. Her writing style is so good. Hi, still editing. But I just wanted to say that I have a hard time getting into her books at first, because she does this thing where she cuts each chapter as if it were an essay and not like a continuation of the story. It's so weird, and maybe I'm nitpicking, but that's one thing that I don't like. This book, both of her books that I've read so far have given me very much big brain energy, and like, thank you, but also no thank you. Like, I don't want to think, but thank you for making me think. It's a love-hate relationship. I love her writing. I love her books. You have to almost like dissect each paragraph, because her writing style is so complex, and not complex in a I'm smarter than you way, or like flowery for the sake of being flowery. No, it's so complex because the things she's talking about are so complex and so important, and so you have to really pay attention to her writing. I mean, she talks about abuse in the story in a relationship. She talks about LGBTQ rights. She talks about insecurities and body image and family issues, things that really hit hard. And yeah, I really highly recommend both of her books. They are fantastic. The next book I read is Come For Me With Apples. This book is so short. First of all, it's so short, but it is packed. This book is a retelling of sorts of Adam and Eve, the first sinners, I believe. Don't quote me on that because I'm not religious, so I really don't know. But as far as I remember from my Catholic upbringing, this book reads as a horror, but it's not a horror. That's what's so interesting about this. It could be very much a horror story, but it's not. Again, very atmospheric, very eerie. I clearly was in the mood for horror. We have a husband and a wife. They are newlyweds-ish, and they live in this sort of private area surrounded by neighbors and houses that all look the same. You cannot be different, you cannot stand out, you cannot play music loudly, you cannot have visitors past certain hours, you cannot give them your keys, those visitors cannot stay over. And throughout the story, I think every so many chapters, you get the set of rules for the place, and they are so insane.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
They add to the story, they add to the atmosphere, to the feeling of unease that you get from uncovering secrets. Because the main character, she uncovers secrets about her life and her husband and her neighbors, and it's, again, all sort of a metaphor.
Murder.
It's really fun to read. It's engaging, it's super short, and Adam is a daddy's boy. He's a spoiled brat who does not conform, who just gets new toys and he throws them away because he doesn't like them. He gets bored of them.
Daddy wasn't there.
Again, super engaging, super fun, super quick read, so enthralling, it's just packed. But yeah, anyway, amazing, fantastic. If you want a really quick read, this is the book for you. Now, what is probably not the book for anyone is this next book, and that is Nothing But Blackened Teeth. This book had so much potential to be a fantastic horror. Such a good foundation of your story to be developed in a way that was satisfactory and well developed and complex and just interesting enough to make you want to keep reading. This is also a very short story, super quick read, so not worth it. This was so disappointing. I hated it. It's about a group of friends who go to Japan, I think, to a haunted house because the bride-to-be wants to have her wedding at a haunted house. And I mean, isn't that just everyone's dream? Getting married and being surrounded by ghosts. Yeah. Things start to get a little bit weird, a little bit creepy, a little bit spooky, and as the hours pass, things just don't feel right, and our main character starts seeing things. That's the thing about the main character. She sees things, but she's not a very reliable narrator because we know she went through something because she mentions it and everyone mentions it multiple times throughout the book. But she never really lands on what happened to her, except that she maybe went a little crazy and had to be hospitalized in a mental institution, and that's it. But we don't know why. We don't know what happened. We don't know what ails her, and so she just lives it like that. But we are supposed to believe that she is seeing all these creatures and all these ghouls surrounding her in the roof and following her.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Then also, these set of characters, they're all awful. None of them are good, except maybe for one who's kind of the asshole, but he is the logical one. He's the one that says, this place is f***ing haunted, let's go. Now, I want to leave. I don't want to die here. Let's leave. He's the voice of reason, but of course no one listens to him. I think he's the only character I actually kind of liked, but again, not enough to make me like the book. It's a weird book. It's not a good horror. Yeah, no, I didn't like it. Tread carefully with this one, because if you're into horror, you're probably not gonna like it. Maybe it was just me. Hopefully it was just me and it's actually good for more people, but...
Is it me? Am I the drama? I don't think I'm the drama.
Anyway.
6 hours later.
Did I take a 6-hour power nap in the middle of filming this video because I ran out of storage again? Yes. Yes, I did. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? Yeah, I ran out of storage again and I took a quick nap. 6 hours, power nap, you know. But I'm back and I am gonna power through and I'm gonna finish this video. Once and for all, I have to finish this video. So, 5 Tuesdays in the Winter. This is a short stories collection. Some are good, some are bad, some are in between. This book, however, every single story needed more development. They needed a couple more pages each for them to be fully impactful and truly memorable and really, really good, because the ones I can remember are the one where the girl gets SA'd, the one where the rich boy gets abandoned, the one with the girl who seeks for toxic traits in relationships, like in every single relationship she has, the weird one about the really awful grandpa, and the one with the girl who's just lost her dad and she's an asshole to her mom because she can't process grief. But while the premise and the foundations of all of these stories sounds amazing, the development was lacking. The characters, while they appear to be complex, they're not really. Stories needed just more. I just needed more.
I'm really disappointed in you, Katie.
You know, I think that was my theme throughout January. It had potential, well, not just January. It had potential, but it fell short. You know, now that I think about it, that's kind of the theme of my life as well. Moving on. Had a lot of potential. Sounds great in theory. On paper, not that great. The first book I read was The Deep, and I actually read it and listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by David Deeks. My Hamilton heart was just... I had a really good time.
You punched the bursar.
Yes.
It's about a community of mer people and their backstory and how they got up from the ground and how they survived and built that community and how they protected it by allowing only one of them to be sort of like, you know that movie, I have the book around here, The Giver. You have one person who has all the memories of every generation that came before them. And this is pretty much the same. You have one of the mer people that they have a name, I just don't remember it. You know what, I'm just gonna read you what I wrote because my brain, after a nap, I cannot function for like another 3 hours.
Oh my god, he's an idiot.
So I wrote, this is a fantasy about intergenerational trauma and omission of the truth to avoid pain, and how living the one toxic environment you've known all your life gives you freedom and independence, but it also fills you with grief and guilt and regret. We follow 2 generations of merfolk as they establish their society and culture, but their founder refuses to let following generations feel all the loneliness and pain they'd all suffered so far. So they decide to appoint a historian, the one individual that'll hold all their memories, like the Giver. Each new generation has a new historian and new memories, but they're really painful both to have and to keep. The weight of the memories affects the historian physically and mentally and puts them in a really dark place. The second generation we follow is the most recent historian, as she abandons the memories and her people in order to be free and to leave, because the memories were literally endangering her life. It was literally life or death. It was either her people, her community, or her life, and so she chose her life, as you should.
And that's on period.
This is an LGBTQ plus book. She falls for this woman, but ultimately she goes back to her people because their pain is so intense. They're unleashing a storm that could potentially kill everyone. This book wasn't like anything I've ever read. One of the underlying topics was slavery and how African enslaved women were thrown overboard when they got sick or they were pregnant. That's kind of how the story begins. It's a what if. It's a what if when these women were thrown overboard and into the ocean, their babies adapted inside the womb and they were born as merfolk. Anyway, it's a really short book. The writing style is magnificent. The narration of David Deeks. Chef's kiss. I love Hamilton.
I will never be satisfied.
It's a really short book and you're left wishing that it was longer. It's really impactful and it's a really painful story. It's super memorable. It's really good. It's really dark as well, but yeah, it's fantastic. This book is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. When I heard about it and when I read the title, I was like, oh, so we're gonna deal with depression and anxiety and like really dark stuff. Like, that's my thing, that's my genre. I want it, I need it.
I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it.
I thought it was gonna make me cry. I thought it was gonna be super impactful and hard-hitting and memorable. Oh, and memorable it was, but not for the right reasons. Oh no. No. So, I didn't like this book. I saw that Kat and Jack Edwards had read it, and that's why I wanted to read it, because I trust them, I trust their opinion. And I was like, okay, I'm in, sign me in. And I hadn't read the synopsis because I don't read synopsis before I read books. I hardly ever do. Anyway, thinking that there was a slight chance that it might disappoint me and that it might not be for me, I read it. I gave it a chance. And oh boy was I surprised in all the possible wrong ways. Jesus. I'm not saying this book is bad. It's not bad. It's not poorly written. No, don't get me wrong. No. This book is just a lot in so very few pages. I've come to realize that stories like that just aren't my thing. Books where the main character willingly gives their freedom to someone else, gives up their agency, their independence, and their basic right as a person frustrates me to unspeakable degrees. It's, oh, Jesus. I don't know. This is a book about mental illness, and I know mental illness. I've dealt with it for many, many years, and I understand it. The thing is, I will never understand or get behind renouncing your own free will for someone else, to someone else. That's never been my thing. That's been ingrained in me since I was very little. I am my own free person, and no one should tell me otherwise. Like, as long as I'm not hurting someone else, as long as I'm not interfering in someone else's life, I can do whatever the fuck I want. And no one should be able to control me. No one should have that right over me, over my body, over my persona, over my mind. No.
Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf.
And I have never come across a book or a movie or a series where I got behind that and where I rooted for the main character to do that. It always ended up with me screaming internally. But I can understand to a certain degree this need or desire to want to belong to or with someone out of love, like true love. As long as you have met them for over a week and in the flesh. Have we learned nothing from Frozen? Jesus. And I do love me some Dark and Twisted, just not at the expense of your freedom. And so for those reasons, this wicked, deprived, perverse, gross, weird, hunting, stupid book was just not for me. If it is for you, kudos. Congratulations. Anyway, moving on to a much better book, and that is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. Mr. Green has done it again, and he has made me incredibly emotional. This time, it wasn't over two teens with cancer. It was over humankind and our sometimes magnificent stupidity. This is a collection of essays about the footprint humankind has left on Earth and how we are destroying it, but how we also contribute and how humans suck, but also not so much. It's a mixture of opinions and reviews, and he actually does review each of his experiences with Earth and with humankind and with society and with mental illness and history. He rates it on a 5-star system, and I actually consumed this book via audiobook, and he narrates it, and there's this part where he literally invites us to sing. He starts singing and he invites the reader to sing with him, and I just found it so heartwarming and so cute. And it's John Green. It's Hank Green's brother. Like, we love Hank Green, the TikTok man. Yeah, that man. We love him. And we love John Green. I love John Green. He certainly made an impact in my life when I was a teenager, and for that I am forever grateful. So, as with any collection of short stories or essays, some are, again, bound to be better than others. And while this book has a variety of different subjects and themes, they all merge and connect to a very basic one, and it is, again, our footprint on Earth and the way we have impacted everything as a society, as a culture, as people. Some essays are incredibly chaotic and so fun to listen to, and actually there were a couple essays that were in the audiobook that were not in my case, a digital book. I don't know why. They were fantastic. One was about anxiety, I think, but yeah, that was weird. But yeah, anyway, this book is really good. It made my 14-year-old heart so happy to be reading John Green again, and it was a really fun experience, especially the audiobook, which I highly recommend if you're gonna read this book. This is The Ones We're Meant to Find. This book follows two sisters. We have two POVs. I don't want to say too much about it because I think the best way to experience this is to go in blind. I didn't know anything about it when I first picked it up. I just liked the cover, and that was it. It was a pretty cover. It's a really pretty cover. Look at that. I'm reading what I wrote because I don't remember. I have no words still in my brain. It's a story about humanity and how far we're willing to go in order to get what we want, no matter the cost, how love can be blinding, and how logic ends where love begins, but also of how we need to think what the greater good is. How can humanity in general benefit from it, even if it's not the most ethical in the grand scheme of things? It weirdly reminded me of this movie, Never Let Me Go, with Andrew Garfield and Keira Knightley. Yeah, it was really, really good. It's filled with sci-fi and technology, and it has morally great characters. It has a nice little romance, but it doesn't overshadow the story, the main story at all. But yeah, anyway, I loved it. It was fantastic. Really highly recommend. The next book I read, oh my gosh, I am so excited to be talking about this because this book is The Mary Shelley Club. Listen. I may be biased here because this book gave me very much Heathers, both the movie and the musical, but mostly the musical. And I have been living in my Heathers phase ever since Meant to Be Yours got popular on TikTok. And that's how I discovered Heathers the musical, and I have been obsessed ever since. It's all I listen to, and so I may be a little bit biased. However, that is not to say that this book isn't fantastic, because it is. It's so angsty, and it has so much mystery, and it's chaotic and unhinged enough that you actually fall for it. It's about misfit, angsty teenagers.
I'm weird. I'm a weirdo.
It's a thriller, it's a mystery, it's a whodunit, it's Heathers. So I don't think I did a very good job explaining this book because I still am not over it. The Mary Shelley Club, it's a club, a literal club, formed by 4 high schoolers. We have the Jug, we have the Goth weird girl, we have the son of the next Obamas, and we have the weird cute outcast. Poor outcasts, all of whom share a deep passion and devotion for horror film. And they have this club to play pranks on other students, and they have a contest, and the best prank kind of wins, but it's a constant contest, and it kind of never ends. And so our main character, Rachel, gets involved by finding out about them on her own. So the club is basically 3 privileged entitled brats and 1 poor guy being assholes to people that have crossed them. It's such an atmospheric book. The writing style of the author literally made me feel what the character was feeling, that all-consuming, crushing feeling of anxiety and fear and just something's not right here. Another thing I liked is that while I was reading it, one of the main characters, one of the main boys, was giving me very much JD vibes from Heathers, and yes, it has to do with my immense obsession with the musical right now, but also not. And the reason why I didn't give it like a full 5 stars was because it lacked a little bit of romance for me. Especially at the end, like she hinted at it. We all saw it coming. I could see it coming from a mile away. It wasn't the sometimes cheesy dialogues. It wasn't the somewhat predictable twists. No, this wasn't a 5-star read because I didn't get enough romance. That's basically just me being petty over a YA book that didn't give me enough romance. But the twists were good. Like, did I see them coming like maybe halfway through the book? Most of them? Yes. Did I guess like half of the big twist? Yeah. But that's not to say that it wasn't still good. The big final twist, while yeah, I guessed some of it, it was bigger. I was shocked because I was not expecting all of that to happen. It had me at the edge of my seat. I was biting my nails. I just wanted to know what happened, and I needed it to be over, not because it was bad, but because I couldn't deal with the anxiety it was giving me. That's a nod to the writer. She's good. She's really good. It was so fun. I ate this book up in like 2 days. We have murder, we have mystery, we have action, we have a bit of romance. The ending, the reveal, it pays off. It's really good. And I highly recommend it, and you should read it. Everyone should read it. Also, listen to Heathers while reading this book because it is an experience. The last book I read in February was One of Us is Lying, book number 1. I really liked the book, but I was just coming out of my Mary Shelley Club fever. And I was just so hyped and I wanted more. I was craving more, and so I looked for books that maybe resembled the same themes, and I came across this one. While it wasn't the same, not even close, it was really good. It was a really good experience. It's a mystery, again, it's a whodunit, but it's mainly a mystery, and it's again filled with teen angst and secrets. We have our 4 main characters, and they get attention with this other guy who runs kind of like a Gossip Girl-esque sight on the school, and he winds up dead. 10 minutes into detention. They, of course, are the main suspects because they all had secrets this guy knew about. They all seem to have a motive, and they all start slowly to come together and try to figure out who actually did it, who actually killed this guy, who everyone, by the way, everyone hated at school because he's a gossip and he knows everything about everyone, and he was also kind of like a misfit, and he wanted to fit in, but he never did. The ending, the plot twist, was actually really good, and I was not entirely expecting it. It has a couple plot twists, most of which I figured out pretty early on, but the kind of like ultimate plot twist, I was like, oh, well, that's new. I read it because the Netflix show was like a couple days away from premiering. And the same night I finished the book, I watched the first episode and I hated it. They changed everything that was like important for plot purposes. But they... No! I just realized that I didn't have my microphone plugged in, so I'm sorry if the audio is a bit wonky. That was my bad. Where was I? Yeah, the show. It sucks. Don't watch it. And so I didn't finish it. But now moving on to Summer Sons. Think Fast and Furious with ghouls, but make it gay. And you have Summer Sons. It wasn't until the 40% mark that it actually started getting interesting, because before that it was so boring and it was so hard and heavy to get through because A, I had no idea what was going on, I was so lost, and B, it was just way too masculine for me. It had a lot of pent up masculine, negative, toxic masculine energy, and I was just like, this is not for me. I don't like this. But then there were these moments where the character was describing another character, but he was like way too specific and made an emphasis on that boy's muscles or that boy's hands. And I was like, wait a second. Is this gay?
Sounds kind of gay, Grandpa.
It was gay. Everyone was.
And it actually made me question it a lot up until the 40% mark where I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely gay. This is so gay. It's about this guy who's just lost his lifelong best friend because he allegedly offed himself. But he doesn't believe that because they knew each other so well and for so long that he's just like, he would never do that to me. He would never abandon me. And so he goes off to try to figure out what happened to his best friend. But the twist, besides from the gay, he and his best friend, they are tethered to ghosts and ghouls and the dead. So he spent the last 5 years, no honey, that's a musical. No, he has spent the last 10 years trying to conceal it and avoid it, you know, Elsa style, conceal, don't feel. Let it go, let it go. But when he gets to where his friend passed away, everyone is like, well, no, he's actually doing his dissertation on urban folklore and ghosts, and mainly his experience and like his family history with ghouls and all of that. And the main character is just like, why would he do that? He never told me anything. He'd been keeping a lot of secrets from me that I didn't know about, and now he's gone and I'm left to figure everything out by myself. He starts following everyone who can give him a lead, even if it's a small one. Anyone he thinks is a potential suspect. He slowly starts to uncover things. But in order to do that, he has to use his connection to the underworld. Not the underworld. This is not Hades Town. He has to use his connection to with the dead to figure out what happened to his best friend. And along the way, he not only discovers bits and pieces of what happens and starts piecing them together, but he also figures out some very painful truths about his relationship with his best friend that he just hadn't thought about before. After about the 50% mark, it gets even more gay, and I love it for it. I actually ended up really enjoying it. I loved the ending. It's a mystery with mixed with horror. It's super atmospheric. It's really descriptive. The first 40% of the story is really hard to get through, but the rest of the book is super interesting, super gay, and really, really, really well written. Next is House of Hollow. This book is what House of Gucci wished it could be. It's like every good part of each season of American Horror Story combined, but make it fashion. I started reading it a few hours after I finished Summer Suns, and I ate it up and I finished it the day after. It was that good. It's that addictive. But what surprised me the most was the author. 2 years ago, I started reading Our Chemical Hearts because a movie came out and I watched the movie, and then I started reading the book and it was so boring and it took me like a year to finish it. Come to find out that it is the same author that wrote this wonderful, amazing book. It's the same author, and my mind was blown. While I was reading it, I was like, okay, yeah, I do see like the similarities between Our Chemical Heart's writing style and this. Like, her writing style is a bit cringy and extra at times. Not everything has to be different and quirky and funny and not like the other girls. The plot, 10 out of 10. The characters, 10 out of 10. The story, the ambiance, the atmosphere, the horror, the detailing, it's such a compelling story. It's such a complex world. It's such a well-developed story and characters and the familial bonds. It's honestly fantastic. It's amazing. I loved it. I ate it up and I needed more. 2 days ago, I started reading All the Young Dudes, a Marauders fanfiction. I hadn't read fanfiction in like 6, maybe 7 years or so, but this one, I knew from the first chapter that it was gonna break my heart and that I was gonna cry. And you know what? I am here for it. I'm here for the pain and I'll enjoy it. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna finish it in like 2 days, 3 at most. So I'm gonna count it as a March read. Anyway, I'm also reading A Little Life. Hold on. I haven't finished it. I am reading it for a vlog. I have this much left to read, which is not a lot. I don't know what I'm gonna read next month. I don't plan ahead. I don't like TBRs. I found out the hard way that if I set a TBR, it's only gonna put me in a really bad reading slump. So I don't do that anymore. But anyway, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a long one. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you feel like it. I'm Erin and I'll see you later. Bye.